Mr. Dennis, the Republican in San Francisco running against Nancy Pelosi, that has like a suicide mission feel to it. Could you explain your rationale for taking on the Goliath in this?
Well, democracy needs candidates, or else you don't have elections. You don't have anything to discuss. And if anybody needs to be challenged, particularly after what happened last night, it's Nancy Pelosi. So here we are.
You're a great Twitter follower. I just checked you out on Real John Dennis, at Real John Dennis, everybody. You have some pretty powerful positions. Some would say insensitive as it relates to dealing with the homeless issue, which is a rampant problem. And, Nancy Pelosi is so concerned with the impeachment process, and yet in her own backyard, we have people using the grocery store as a bathroom in the aisle 4.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is Sunday, some presumably homeless person walked into the paper products aisle in the Safeway in the Marine in San Francisco. That Safeway, both within a mile of me and within a mile of Nancy Pelosi, went to that aisle, dropped his pants and defecated, and opened up a package of better quality toilet paper and found himself there and left the store. And I don't know what you're referring to in terms of insensitivity, but I think it's callous to let people languish on the streets. And what we have here are guilt-ridden liberals who don't want to do anything about the problem. They just want people to lay out on the streets and perish. And my position is that we need to take a different direction. We need to get people off the streets. We have to hold them accountable for the crimes that they commit on the street, like going to the bathroom on the street, like shooting up drugs. And then once we get them in custody, we can find out what the best course of action is for whether it's jail or rehab or psychiatric help.
Well, I'm sure, though, your opponents will say, oh, yeah, you just want to incarcerate everybody. You would swamp an already swamped jail system would be really swamped if you took everybody off the street that deserves to be taken off the street. Because let's face it, I mean, your city's in trouble when you have to have a map for tourists where they can avoid human defecation on the sidewalk.
Well, most of the people who come into San Francisco most of the homeless people come into San Francisco to be homeless. So if we let them know that sort of activity is no longer acceptable in this city, they'll go to other places to indulge in that lifestyle. So our jails, I beg to differ, wouldn't be very crowded because the homeless population would be cut probably in half overnight and then continue to dwindle from that point.
How is it, just looking at the voter rolls and the advantage Nancy Pelosi and every Democrat has in the state and just about everywhere in the state, how does a Republican find any traction? Give me your path to victory. How can you, she's been there since time immemorial. How can you find a way to put together enough votes to defeat her?
Popular now than before. There are 3 Democrats, believe it or not, running against Nancy Pelosi to her left. Wasn't sure that was possible, but they found a way. But 5 years ago, those Democrats wouldn't consider challenging Nancy Pelosi. So her own position is weakened in this town. And forgive me for being unchivalrous here, but Nancy Pelosi is going to be 80. She shares a birthday with my daughter in March, and the Democrat vultures are circling Nancy Pelosi right now. So she's not going to be in office forever, and she's weaker than ever. And I'm more of a libertarian Republican, so I'm more interested in protecting and preserving civil liberties and privacy and ending endless wars. And those positions are really popular in San Francisco. So once we get through the primary where will presumably get the most votes, I'll come in second. Then San Franciscans are going to have the choices narrowed between John Dennis and Nancy Pelosi in the general election in November. And from there, I feel like we can put together a coalition that can finally, at long last, oust Nancy Pelosi.
Well, obviously, you look at the happenings last night in the nation's capital. You see Nancy Pelosi's role in it. You feel like that makes her more vulnerable. Explain why.
Well, first of all, people are, that galvanized Republicans last night and galvanized Republicans who support the president. So those Republicans are, going to come to my aid as has been said, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. I am a bold Republican. I'm supporting Donald Trump in San Francisco, but also supporting other values that are important to San Francisco. So with the critical mass of Republican support from around the country, I can actually reach out to the no party preference voters, the conservative Democrats, galvanize the Republican vote in San Francisco, and hopefully pull off the big upset in the general election in November of 2020.
It would be laughable if it wasn't so darn serious, but suddenly the Speaker of the House is concerned about fairness as it relates to the Senate trial. When, are they aware of the hypocrisy of their position? Are they just, is it hubris or is it incompetence?
Well, it's funny you say that, because this morning I put out a tweet and said that self-awareness is the first casualty of mobbed action. And they are completely self-unaware. And what they're really unaware of is who's controlling the Democrat Party right now. And it is the progressive wing of the Democrat Party that's flying that bird right now. And they're willing to turn it over to. The energy was with them. They've ceded the moral authority to those folks, and those folks are off their rockers. So good luck to the Democrats, because they committed suicide on national TV last night.
We had Georgette Gomez, who's our city council president, who's running for the soon-to-be vacated seat by Susan Davis. And I asked her something along these lines, that this is a blue state getting bluer. At what point does the liberal left, the progressive left, the radical left, whatever you want to call it, at what point do they accept responsibility for the state of the state? Could you expand a little bit on that? They're in charge of the curriculum in public schools. They're in charge of the judiciary picks, environmental policy at the expense of small businesses, and on it goes. It's their game, and yet somehow it's still Republicans' fault that California is in the condition that it is. Could you expand on that a little bit?
That's a great point. I mean, I'd like to find the Republican in City Hall who's responsible for the homeless crisis in San Francisco. Yeah, well, let me just say this. It's funny you mentioned schools and the indoctrination that kids get. It's funny. Kids have an immunity for at least for some period of time in education. A friend of mine who's a teacher, I just had coffee with him less than an hour ago. He teaches in San Francisco public schools, and he tells me that there is an appetite that kids see through a lot of this stuff. And so that gives me some hope. It also gives me some hope in that that Republicans are not responsible for just about any of the woes that are specific to California. I mean, think about how amazing California is, from south to north and everything in between. And people are leaving the state. And it's all because of what's going on with Democrats in Sacramento. San Franciscans, Republicans have to do the hard work. It's heavy lifting. You got to get out there and meet people. But there are lots of people who are rooting for us. We have admirers, and we need to help get those admirers out to the ballot box and get them to register their friends as Republicans, sending a message to California Democrats that their days are numbered.
I just brought up Gomez because it just blew me away that she didn't see that this is in their lap. I mean, this is their party. So, I say the state is getting blue and getting bluer. Obviously, you want to disagree with me there because you want to be a ray of red. Will this state ever be back like it was when I first came here 20-some years ago? Will the Republicans ever have a voice, or is it a lost cause?
Oh no, absolutely. Republicans you're going to see a Republican come back. I'm very optimistic about that. I'm saying with prospects in the state. I have another role. I'm not only running against Nancy Pelosi, but I'm also the chairman of the San Francisco Republican Party, which since I've been active with it for the last 12 years, has dwindled. It's gotten smaller. But there's an article written about us that we are the most important Republican Party in America because we're kind of a canary. And with all of the failures in San Francisco, what I referred to as sorry to say this, Democrat failure porn, because they just keep failing over and over and over again. People are finally giving the Republican Party a second look. We are looking forward to a 2020 where we have more Republicans registered in San Francisco than we do in 2019, and moving forward, continuing to turn that ship in our direction.
Mr. Dennis, thank you for your time. It's at Real John Dennis, correct? At Real John Dennis is where everyone can find you.
The Twitter handles both at Real John Dennis, and the website for the campaign is very simple. It's johndennis.com.
Mr. Dennis, thank you for your time. I'll let you tend to your dog, and maybe we'll do this again, okay?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, John Dennis, everybody.